lovely good afternoon to you all our viewers joining us this particular afternoon on Camnet TV. Thank you so much for joining us for the lunchtime cafe. My name is Joe Smarter, and of course you are watching us live on DSTV and GoTV, as well as our Facebook page, which is Camnet TV. Search for it, like the page, and be sure to leave a comment as you join us on this very interesting discussion where I host a governance expert and an author, and of course a political enthusiast in the name of Mr. Squindy Stula, who joins me this particular afternoon. Good to see you, sir, and welcome.
Thank you very much. Greetings to all the viewers.
Okay, good to have you here. I must say, first time hosting you right here at Camnet. But maybe to kickstart the ball rolling, let's take it to Friday. The incident that happened on Friday, Mr. Stula, where we saw former President Edgar Lungu going into town and the police issuing a statement in that regard. You're a governance expert, you know the circumstances surrounding this particular story. Your immediate reaction?
A mixed reaction, if you like.
Okay.
First of all, I think we are paying too much attention to, former President Edgar Lungu.
Okay.
As an individual, he's a man at liberty. But also now comes the reason why, our eyebrows, sort of open.
Okay.
Our eyes sort of open and our eyebrows are lifted, if you like. He is former president of the Republic of Zambia.
Okay.
So maybe I should go a little further to explain what that means to the nation and to everybody else. You see, once you serve in the highest office of the land as president, the key issue to mind is that you have been initiated into, if you like, the army. Let's start from there. You have been initiated the army because you were once army, commander. So you've been initiated in the army. But more than that,
having served as a head of state.
when you serve as a head of state,
Chief,
you become commander-in-chief of the
armed forces. Okay.
So even when you are a civilian, you are, for lack of a better term, you are a general.
Oh yeah.
you see, in the army circles.
Okay.
Now, that goes with the fact that you are an institution. So the former president, is an institution of the cares of the people of Zambia. He's a trophy, in short, of the people of Zambia. Therefore, his whereabouts, his activities, surround that decorum and demand.
Okay.
Now, when he chooses to go into politics, he sort of loses that stature. So he becomes a commoner, to the extent that then he has to, basically be treated like any other.
So he becomes an ordinary individual citizen.
Yes, and yet he still remains a trophy, but one that it's like going to the hospital.
Okay.
And you live against medical advice. You discharge yourself from the hospital. You are a patient, but you have discharged yourself from the hospital.
Okay.
So the doctors have no jurisdiction over you. They don't take responsibility. If you die on the way in the stairs, on the way to your car, it can't be called negligence of the doctor. No.
You discharge yourself.
You did. So if he discharges himself, then he'll be treated like any other. So there are all those elements that you apply to get to reason on this one. But he's a man at liberty, and I think we mustn't pay so much attention.
Why then are we paying so much attention?
Because we are forgetting that he has a group of people who voted for him, who liked him, who worked with him, who miss what they were getting from him.
Okay.
So they are in order to try and stand on anthills and scream the loudest, to try and bring him back to politics. Why? Because their craving has even gone high. Appetite for money and other things. Okay. So the nobles that are there. I must say that under the penumbra of Lungu, there was so much that used to happen, and there's a lot on the public display. So in terms of illegalities, in terms of beating people into submission, I think that the trouble is that even Lungu hasn't taken time to review why the Zambian people rejected him from an honest point of view, so that then he would have been seen as somebody who's remorseful, somebody who basically wants to make amends with the Zambian people and everybody else, and somebody who wants to provide the critical lessons that accrue and apply only to him, so that the nation can benefit. Actually, he can provide a lot of advice and everything else. But so because of those people as they stand on anti-use, and you actually even begin thinking you can win an election. It takes a lot to win an election. Even when you've got all the resources in place, just time. Sometimes you go to a place and then they'll tell you, and we understand what you're saying, but we have already chosen.
It's a done deal.
Yes.
Even before we go to the polls, look at the card.
Yes.
Meaning we've already chosen.
Yes. Maybe you should come back another time. Okay. So just that, you have the right message, everything is okay, but their commitments are not with you. They have gone to some. So all those things, there are things to take into consideration. But what you see is a desperate move of people to, basically try and get power at all costs.
Is this what is at play right now in the Zambia political space, Mr. Stula?
The Zambian people ordinarily have moved on from Lungu.
Okay.
They've moved on from PF. They are, listening and dealing with other issues. The fortunate thing, and we must call a spade, the fortunate thing is that so far, this administration hasn't done anything wrong to warrant, displeasure. But the only thing that this administration must do, continually, is to go and explain to people. Like I've said before, I don't think that perhaps we've come of age. We've come to a time where we can deal with politics honestly. Because I think that I know that people who want to be deceitful in politics are people who, who have a deficiency of some kind.
Maybe speak to that, Mr. Stula, because we're having a conversation, me and my producers. Then a conversation came up where individuals within our circle were saying that the hallmark of a politician is them lying or being a liar. So I want to find out from you, how can this narrative be changed such that whoever is seen to be a politician or whoever vies for a political office is regarded as an honest person, and this person means what they say, they walk the talk? How can we change that narrative of moving from dishonest politicians, if you like?
Yeah, I think we must supplant our cultural values and norms and interest ourselves to things what people call social justice.
Okay.
The key issue is this: because the space of politics has been so lucrative, you have a situation where most criminals, briefcase, businessmen and conmen, easily find ways of getting into that space, and use it to their advantage. Now that will always be the case, but I think the Zambian people must continually be engaged and be shown the truth, from the falsehoods as we see them. So there's a lot of falsehood in a political environment, and I think this administration interests me and many others, because if you look at even the stability of the political party itself, just look at the stability. There hasn't been so much hullabaloos and inward fighting, intra-party, huge intra-party differences. Even when we insist that there must be a lot of thinking towards a democratization, deepening democracy within UPND, because as things stand right now, UPND should be an opposition and a ruling party within itself, like the ANC at one time had to be, in South Africa for an example, or the Chama cha Pinduzi, in Tanzania. So, and that assures longevity, and longevity is good for the nation, because then you can see, you know, your progression. You can actually see how far you progress. So that is now the only recourse as things stand, because there's no opposition to talk about. You know, I have said before, this kind of, you know, opposition we have is moribund. It's full of insolence, you know, if you like, and so on and so forth. So for me, I see that there's need, therefore, to get, you know, UPND and its partners to understand that they must do a lot of talking within, and which is why I always say political parties that are worth the salt must interest themselves to the area of, you know, think tanks, because then you can bounce off your own ideas and, you know, basically sharpen them and so on and so forth. As things stand, UPND hasn't done anything wrong, you know, to warrant our displeasure, but they must continually. I like that UPND has accepted that the cost of living is very high, and they have an explanation to make to that effect, where we're coming from and what is being done. And I think that I agree. Some of us who grew up, you know, in a village, when it's time for plowing, it's painful. You have to wake up very early in the morning. You have got to spend long hours in the fields and everything else. So there's no pleasure. So, and this is a stage at which this economy is. It can't be, you can't be happy, because it's a sowing time. In the Christian environment, they'll tell you that this is the time to sow, and the reaping will come. You know, and when the reaping comes, you will experience, you know, greater good. That's what we are going through right now. There's a lot of economic, you know, upheaval. What is, you know, interesting is that the government knows, and that they are honest about it, and their way of engaging, you know, the people are such, you know, honest as to warrant us, you know, a great joy in the end. So these are some of the activities that are there. But to clean up that, you know, environment, we need continuous engagement. We need to invoke our culture. We need to fall back really strongly on our values as the human values. And which is why I think there are things we don't learn in school. There are many things we don't learn in school which are more applicable, and which is what we live by on a day-to-day basis than otherwise would, you know, meet the eye. I don't know when you last applied, you know, if you ever applied algebra, you know, in your life, you know. So, but
after school,
yes.
No.
Have you ever applied algebra in your life?
No, not
so what use was it? Wasting time. I think we need to get, you know, to what works for us, and that is to get our people in such a way that they invest their time in things that are helpful. So in this case, you are saying at least the basics is that we learned how to respect elders. We learned, you know, how to preserve our seed. We learned how to do our personal health, not in school, but we learned all these values, and these are values that quite close to our cultural, you know, understanding. But in the end, they present to us, or raise within us, a humane person who knows that the neighbor that they see, that elderly person, even if they are not their biological father, is their father to them. And so they accord them the kind of respect. So once we get those values, it will take us back to, you can't take what does not belong to you. The people who have been colluding to steal and have brought this country to a standstill, you know, are people who have, and I'm talking about this education part, because I'm going to go to the area of interest where, you know, the PF administration introduced the grade 12 certificate against, I don't even know how many, do you understand how many people were barred by that? By the
introduction of grade 12
Yes,
certificate.
do you know how many people were barred from contesting public office? You had close to 70% of the adult population being barred. Because, so now that shows to you that our literacy levels are so low. But we don't have to sort of, you know, massage, or is it create a fake scenario where we want to present a parliament that is educated. This parliament and all others must be a true reflection of who we are as a society. If there are more women, I expect more women in parliament. If there are more youth, I expect more youth in parliament. If there are, you see, so things like that. So, but we'll talk about the issue of the of the qualification, you know, away from this. I mean, further maybe.
Okay. Yeah. So, Mr. Stula, let me find out from you. Some section of society out there believes, and they've thrown these theories around, that there's no morality in politics. So, yes, you might have the values that you've learned over the years, but once you step into the political arena, there's no morality. Adults are demeaned, there's mudslinging, there's name calling. How do we move away from such politics and just make sure that the youths, for instance, are attracted to our kind of politics? The women themselves, I have had conversations with women that have tried to contest, and they've told me that for some, they were still recovering from, they even went into depression and they're still recovering from that because of the insults, the demeaning words that were used against them. How do we move on from that, Mr. Stula, and begin to make our politics more attractive?
I think we'll make our politics more attractive, by embarking on the thought process that what that HH has introduced.
Okay.
I think it's quite good, quite fair. You see, service. And the reason why this politics has been like that, where you have got a lot of bad people in there, is because the good people chose to do nothing. And so that's how evil triumphed, as people, would say. The triumph of evil, will only come when the good people, stay silent or get divorced from, participating in it.
Okay.
So the political environment that, arises is exactly of hooliganism and everything else, because criminals have nothing to lose, so they go in there and do anything and everything they want and, beat everybody into submission. But I think that we have to clean up that thing, by way of raising a new man, of a righteous man, a just man. They don't have to be, necessarily be church going alone, but I think they should also be interested in their culture and interested in their traditions and values as a people. Africans are naturally respecting, caring. We are also referred to time and again people of a placid disposition. So we are good people.
So why don't we see that in our politics? Why don't we see good from politicians? For instance, if you say fuel pump prices are high, somebody out there will say you are being sponsored by the opposition. If you are going to say these subsidies can't be introduced because they are not sustainable and this government is paying back $800 million that was owed to oil marketing companies, somebody will say, no, you are UPND. When are we going to reach a level where we can have a conversation that is objective and not looked at with political lenses, Mr. Stowe?
Because we have made everything about life in this country revolve around politics. Even churches have to revolve around politics. Even traditional leaders have to revolve around politics. If we have over-politicized our spaces.
Okay.
Even you getting a job, you need to be not to know a politician. So that's the only thing. Otherwise, there are things, and for me, which is why I think UPND must provide leadership. Because it's omnipresent, as I say, in all these societies. And it's the closest and easiest and nearest place where people can go and talk to. And I know it's a political standpost that we're talking about. But it does help if what that standpost does in the end. So it is there, it's established, but what does it do? We have to navigate our people towards working hard.
Okay.
Majority of our people, do not engage in real work. And by the way, I even go a step further. Because you and I spend a lot of time on our computers, we actually don't work, you know that? Work must be manual. That's what God talked to us about. It must be manual. You till the land, you do what? We have to learn to do that, to grow.
But then again, Mr. Stula, somebody out there who will argue with you and say, look, maybe yes, you are right, but how do I apply my skills, for instance? Because right now we don't have industries where we can use our hands to work, and all these excuses will be put across. Mr. Stola, how do you?
We have a very small population, my brother.
Okay.
20 million people. The key issue is, first of all, even our education. Let me go to our education. Our education, programming is very bad. It's about regurgitation. It's about remembering. It's about So if you have gotten 6 points, you've gotten 6 points not because you are a thinker, but you are good at remembering.
Okay, so
we need to get every one of those people to work. So how do you put people to work? The revolution, first of all, comes from, are we able to self-enslave like the Chinese did?
Self-enslave?
Self-enslave.
Okay.
Can I suffer in order for me to gain later and my community to gain more and my family to gain further?
Doesn't that require political will, Mr. Stone?
Yes. For now, that's a starting point. But you see, it requires political will to navigate you into the social and economic spaces that make sense to you. And that can bring about growth. That's where we are. Productivity. You remember there's been an argument, owning your means of production. In this country, you can't argue that land is prohibiting to find. No, we can't for now. And land is the prime source of engagement, what you call the means of production. The next stage is, what do you do with that land? So what the government must be doing right now is opening more land for people to own land, making it easier for Zambians to have land and helping them to have the basic things that is required to produce food in surplus. So we must be ashamed of ourselves if we are talking about food insufficiency or insecurity, because we've got water, we've got all these things, and the government is doing its best on one side, but we have to raise a man that it loves to work. The same way people get addicted to go to a gym. I wish you could use that time in your field rather than the gym. You would not need a gym. The only reason why you need a gym is that your work culture and your lifestyle is not about manual work. So your body is craving. That's the only reason why you want to go and exercise. But if you do manual work, you don't need that. That's why you find our people in the villages, by and large, really, live longer. They have lesser diseases of sugar and BP and things like that compared to us who are just, every time in your car and on your laptop and everything else. We've got to go back to the basics and deal with the basics to change our narrative and shift our narrative as a country. So they need to be guided into economic spaces where we can produce, where we can contribute, but we must do that with a fitter temper. And how do you do that? There must be clear understanding that's less politicized, and people must be engaged and listen to the right places. I have always said in my book, Fall of the Church from Grace, that man is a slave unto him he listens to. So if you listen to the devil, you'll be a slave of the devil. If you listen to a righteous man, you'll be a slave of a righteous man. So either ways, you have got to make a choice of what you enslave yourself to. So, but as things stand in this country right now, our education system needs to change. It must apply more practicality. We must spend time learning things that are more immediate and are required immediately if we are to turn things around. Remember, we have an ambition to leave the cluster of third world countries. And I think this president is really pushed us on that trajectory where, we are now humming engines towards, better spaces where you'll be component producers, you can produce a battery, and that the world is going towards electric cars. If Zambia becomes a prime producer of batteries as component producers, to all the cars in the world, and we are contributing, our economics is going to change. And this man, which is why, again, speaking about this man is inevitable, because I think out of his personal good credibility, he has been able to manage, in terms of dealing with our debt, problem. That is largely because of his personal connections, is the trust that he has with these people. And we are blessed with that, and we must celebrate that. So for me, it's these things, all of these, put them together. So back to education. You must have an education system that will be talking about, handing you practical, means by which you can lift yourself out of poverty. Practical means. So that includes your mindset.
Are we ready? Do we have the majority of Zambia's population comprises of the youth?
Yes.
The young people.
Yes.
Are the young people ready for such thinking, for a paradigm shift altogether? Are they ready?
If they,
Mr. Stula?
yes, if the what they know, if the bad that we know, we learned it somewhere. The good that we must know, we can learn it from somewhere.
Okay.
It's a long time thing. It's a long ambition. You can't keep that ambition, you know, to revolve around President Hakainde Hichilema, who has probably just, you know, 10 years, you know, in office at most. Okay? You need it to revolve around all of us. That's our response.
But
When you are,
that?
look
How
at
do
this,
you do that?
Mrs. When you are appointed as PS, do you ever ask yourself, would you ever ask yourself, why me, why not the other person?
People stop answering phone calls.
Because
that's what we've learned.
Because they don't understand their space. Because they don't know why they are there. They don't even have an idea why President Hakainde Hichilema put them there.
That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line. If you know why you've been called to duty, you work as such. Because then you know you are contributing to a larger, you know, vision. And this man has carried a larger vision. His program, listen to his speeches, very ambitious. And a nation that wants to change, shift the narrative, shift the gong, you know, into to become a good country. You can only, you know, but, you know, cling to that vision. It's a great vision, which is why, again, you found the politicians, the opposition political parties, utterly, you know, dispossessed. They have nothing to deflate, I mean, to form a charge against, you know, Hakainde Hichilema. Why? Because for them, they are now just using envy, jealousness, hate, tribal segregation.
Why should it be like that? Why should we practice such kind of politics?
Because usually when you see people throwing punches at each other, it means they've failed to reason. Either all of them have failed to reason or one of them has failed to reason.
Why can politicians coexist like Chelsea fans and Manchester United fans?
Actually, we are more than that. This country is very beautiful. First of all, there's no tribe that is superior in this country. There has been attempts to make one or two tribes more superior than others, but it's not possible. The numbers in Western Province alone, there are 33 tribes. There in Western Province, 33 tribes. It's not a joke. 73 tribes as the rest of Zambia, the whole country. All these are beautiful in their own nature. If some of them are even languages. They are beautiful. And now, no one will cede the space. We should just actually continue to nurture these, because, you see, for me, this is what you call a natural heritage.
Okay.
Yeah, don't just celebrate the wonders as Victoria Falls. When you hear that the Bazungus are coming here for tourism, there's also something else called ecotourism. There you go. It's because we are beautiful. Just how did you manage to knit yourself into one fabric and coexist like this? Me, when I look at Zambia, I look at something that is mysterious. When I look at Zambia, I look at God created a marvel in knitting so many tribes together at peace and in harmony. And together they are called a nation. It's fantastic. So those that want to distort this, it's not sustainable. Times have shifted. You know, there's been intermarriages, there's been, you know, a lot of experiences together. There are common things that we do, you know, in almost in every other tribe. So that can't work. The key issue that they must do is pick President Hakainde Hichilema, you know, on his policy, you know, formulations. So what are your policy alternatives as the opposition to this man? That is when they will be able to start making sense. But no, what you know what? You can't go on like that. Because time has shifted. It won't change. So say what you're going to do in the area of agriculture, in the area of education and everything else. So that then we can begin, you know, comparing and contrasting. Just like when people talk about the shrinking democratic space.
I was coming to that. That was my next point of discussion. Our next point of discussion, Mr. Stula. Let me find out from you. What are the indicators of a shrinking democratic space? Do we have some indicators in Zambia currently that are suggesting that there is shrinking democratic space? Let me get it from you.
Yeah, you see, dead eyes only see darkness where there is light. So it doesn't matter how many times you preach to a man whose eyes are dead about the color of light. He doesn't see it. That's where we are.
Okay.
That's where we are. Fortunately, these eyes that are dead are induced into that position. They are not naturally dead.
Okay.
So someone has closed their mind and heart. They don't want to hear and to listen. But the bottom line is, what those people who say the democratic space has shrunk in this country should be doing is proposing medals to President Hakainde Hichilema for taking out the criminalization of anything, of basically, criticizing the president.
Okay.
He needs an award for that.
Okay.
He needs an award. In my view, he needs a People's Award for restoring peace and law and order in this country, where you would just be beaten even, before your children on your doorstep for being a member of an opposition political party. I think the man deserves a medal from us, the Zambian people.
Okay.
This man said there will be free flow of information. So the media is free to the latter in this country. He has also said the private media can even accompany me. This man needs that medal. He needs another medal. The Freedom of Information Bill, which some of us who have been on this political, discourse for a long time, know that it was unheard of and unthinkable. The law that allows you to question is there. This man needs a medal for taking down the death penalty. Why? Because look, we're a Christian nation, so we have to value life and not condemn. Perhaps some people will even reform and become greater people if you give them an opportunity to live longer. So all these put together do not speak to a democratic space that is, on a downward spiral, to basically, a rogue state. No. What we had in this place was the rogue state, where someone could be shot in point blank for political reasons, for not supporting you. Worst crimes ever committed. And I don't know, I can't understand why up to now people are not being brought to book. And that's where the failure is. Gassing. Gassing. How, mysterious and unexplained, murders. Ritual murders. We had a lot of that. So I don't know what the compare and contrast reason would be for those that want to negate this fact and suggest our democracy is... First of all, they don't even understand democracy.
Okay.
Because the democracy, there's what you call democracy as a foreign policy of the United States of America. It's there. It's another kind of democracy. But the Zambian democracy is about, first of all, it's about the multipartism.
Okay.
It's about, free and fair elections, and it's about change of, power. These we've experienced. It's about bold opposition. The opposition here has all the latitude to pick to what is supposed an opposition political party is supposed to do, which is to provide credible checks and balances and propagate an alternative to policies that don't make sense to the Zambian people. And this opposition is failing to see that there is no way you should stop close to 70% of adults and tell them that their job is only to elect others, they themselves cannot have ambition. Why? Because they are not educated. That, for me, if I was running a political party, is what I would be talking every day. Because it's an injustice. The reason why I'm Zambian and why what should call me to feel Zambian is not how rich I am, it's not how short I am, it's not which church I go to. The civil liberties, the political rights that I have of electing and being elected, that's a foremost point of contact that, classifies and discusses me as a citizen. So for me, this is an embarrassing law because it's worse than what you saw apartheid in South Africa. So what morals would we have as leaders in the country to say there's close to 70% of these adults who don't have grade 12 certificates should not ever aspire for leadership? Why? Because leadership is preserved for a few. Why? They did that because they themselves didn't have master's degrees. Because if they had PhDs and master's degrees, perhaps they should have said, for you to enter parliament, the minimum qualification should be a master's degree. Why? Because it's a specialization. But they didn't do that because they wanted to just, segregate, alienate, and, push to the peripherals the participation of other people. Participation rights. Every citizen must have the right to participate in the governance of their country throughout the cycle, which is electing and being elected to public office. So you can't even call it representative democracy because you can't represent me to an office I don't qualify. You don't represent me. You represent yourself because only you qualifies. So all these things are lacunas that have been left behind by this administration, which need to be addressed. Now, if we are serious about governing ourselves, this matter must be dealt with. And this, I think, is the challenge that President Hakainde Hichilema and others have to deal with this. You will have different kinds of people. Other people are slow learners. President Hakainde Hichilema himself has always said there's early maturity and late maturity. But you see, that cannot be subject to their rights. A right means that there's nothing else supposed before it. So I think the people have a right to participate. And we must attend to this law, remove it, and make it easy for everybody to participate happily. Right now what's happening is that in some wards, you have to import people with grade 12 certificates to stand because those that are natural leaders there have been barred from standing. Now, we cried when President Kaunda was being barred by Chiluba from standing. But what about this one who was barred 70% of the adult population? So what are we doing about it?
So, then the question comes, Mr. Stula, does it mean that as a country that we've embarked on this ambitious journey, if I may call it, through successful governments, where we have seen the emergence of strong men that hold these political offices, but living or creating weak institutions?
Yeah. So again, it's the culture that we've developed over the years, which is very bad.
Okay.
If you want to understand us and see where the problem is, just look at our homes. Your worst managed place is a toilet. We don't pay attention to detail.
Why is it like that?
It's a culture. We have to relearn ourselves and re-engineer, rewire the way we think and deal with our lives. We are watching our secondary schools, our primary schools. I mean, why do you have schools using pit latrines today? Why?
In this day and age.
Yes. The majority of our schools use pit latrines. And you are comfortable how? Go at the University of Zambia. 9 billion kwacha debt. President Hakainde must pay attention to that. And which is why I'm also saying, apart from everything else, he must be the chancellor there. He needs to be the chancellor there. And there are greater reasons for him to be chancellor there than otherwise not be chancellor there.
Okay.
So we clearly, you can see that most of these people, I mean, the administration that we have today, inherited a broken down system, socially, culturally, and economically and politically. Now, to deal with this, you need to carry everybody. So the president is doing very well, but he must continue and carry everybody with him.
Okay.
Because, you know, we all need to be, you know, I call it, you know, echoes of this, you know, change agenda. We need that. So to do that, we have got to go back to all these basics. The way we manage our toilet, the way we manage our house, paying attention to detail. Do you have a maintenance plan in your house?
This is why I asked you a question, Mr. Stula, to say, are the young people that make up the majority of Zambia's population ready for economic transformation of Zambia?
They have to be made ready.
By whom?
There's no one who, as long as somebody has given up, as long as somebody has given up, they will not behave rightly and, you know, correctly.
Okay.
If you give up in life, you become a junkie. But you see, why should people who have gone through even the basic education system give up? Because what we are putting on their mind is different from what the reality demands of them.
Okay.
So we have to address ourselves to the realism of preparing our young people for tomorrow. But one of them must also mean that I said on ZNBC a few days ago, ZNBC TV, that even consultations, it's important to consult everybody, including children. People think children are children. Consult them. Engage them. You will see the greater good of getting the entire country, you know, involved in changing and shifting the narrative, you know, in terms of this economic transformation that we have. It's a huge agenda. The opposition have a role to play in it. And that's why we lament. We want a strong opposition that will pick this, you know, government on its policies and engage them so that the discourse is finer. So all of us must be there, nation building. So young people need a good environment. Now the biggest breakdown that we have, which is giving rise to the kind of young people that we have, and many others, disobedient and insolence, if you like, is because the family has broken down.
Family system?
Yes, so where did the family system break down?
Okay.
We all inherited the Western type of governance, which is alien to ourselves. The man has been dispossessed. What powers do you have now to superintend over your family? Look at the marriages that are breaking down. Just see.
Okay.
The only thing that holds a marriage together is adherence to a culture, you know, strictures. So if you don't have cultural strictures to attend to, the marriage won't hold. Because a lot of people want to think that marriage is about happy moments, it's about no argument, it's about what? It's not possible. As long as there are two different heads, two people, it's not possible. So now, what have we lost? The family unit is the greatest, you know, generation. And this President Hakainde himself has said, and I agree with him.
Okay.
Yes, the family. We have got to have strong families. Then we can have strong communities. Then we can have strong, you know, constituencies, if you like. Strong to the latter, you know. But if you cannot, if you leave this to a free-falling environment, then you can't build, you can't construct stability. The president talks about stability. It's a political stability, national stability and everything else. There must be stability at a family level. So who is the head of the family? Who is the head of the family?
The man.
So the man must be empowered to be a correct and proper head of the family. Right now, it's a story. Sad story.
Okay, Mr. Stwala, talking about realities, let me bring you to the reality that is currently happening or common to the Zambian people. But let me bring your attention to the issues that have to do with load shedding.
Yes.
This has been a cry from most Zambians out there, saying that the hours are too long, and sometimes the utility company does not even follow its own timetable. And this again has got an impact on the productivity of Zambian citizens. You are familiar with this particular story and what is happening surrounding load shedding. What is your immediate reaction?
Yeah. So first of all, let's start with this the schedule. For me, and I'll speak, from a point of view of being, a user.
Okay.
I think that 4 hours, interchange and exchange was the greatest, was the best you could ever do.
Okay.
I think stretching them for so long a time makes it worthless, because then you have people having almost a whole day without power and have power only in the night when they're sleeping. So I think this constant exchange, I hope that it's one of those things that they've used to, to deal with this.
Okay.
But the deficit, is established. Again, once you have a government that deals with you honestly, it's easy to follow.
Okay.
Now, I'm following very easily because I see that this government is very honest and is dealing with us honestly.
Okay.
Because where there is a problem, you acknowledge there is a problem. And out of transparency, you actually are able to show your solutions. And then you are able to ask, is there a better solution than this? We are highly indebted. ZESCO is highly indebted. This country is highly indebted. We've been negotiating ourselves out of, this whole, problem. Now, how do you deal with all this debt? And you can maybe take fuel and electricity together, because from the fuel point of view, then you are talking even of a staggering $800 million debt. Now that's not a joke. It's a lot of money. So how did we end there? That's probably much of the money that ended up in people's pockets in one way or the other. Kickbacks and other things. Okay? Now, that's a problem on its own. So the energy and the electricity problem that we have, will, for now, the kind of, problem we're faced with is mainly instigated or occasioned, rather, by drought.
Okay.
By our drought. But even as we go, you can see that the moment we started having this problem, you had a president who was troubling himself to fix this problem. For me, the intention is established. The sincerity is established. The rest is all of us must now follow and be part of the greater agenda of making sure that we are not fully, all of us, dependent on the national grid alone. I think the key issue is, how can you answer to the fact that a school should have roof solar panels. A clinic should have roof solar panels. And our communities must have solar, kiosks where you can buy this power. So it's that which we need to do.
Okay.
As far as we are concerned, and as far as I see myself, the deficit is there. It's not a lie, it's there. And I think they are doing everything possible to try and remedy this. Yes, but what is my role also in it? Where possible, let's interest ourselves to easier mechanisms of the solar, engagement. But let's get our scientists to work. That is where I'm saying, if you invest in education the right way, you can now benefit from there. Even the industry will be, teethers. Will have teethers that, can work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Stula, one technocrat whom we hosted did admit that successful governments, proposals have been made to them, research papers have been handed over to them regarding sorting out economic, social challenges of Zambia. However, these papers, these documents are just in these offices gathering dust, and they are never touched or reviewed to see how best some of these challenges can be sorted out by using the knowledge that has been brought about by our technocrats. Now, he said Zambians were poor at implementing our policies and the like. Let me find out from you. That coming from a technocrat, you are a governance expert, a technocrat. How then can we as a country begin to have a cadre of people that are hungry to implement, people that are thirsty or that are enthusiastic implementers? How do we develop such a cadre of citizens?
The bottom line is we must all fight haters of people.
Okay.
That's the starting point. The only reason why we are not paying attention is that someone is going to tell you, don't listen to him. Why? He's not from your tribe.
Okay.
Absurd, isn't it? It's actually stupid.
60
So
years
if
after independence?
yes, 60 years after independence, would the classic example for you to see that that does not work is go to a hospital. So you go to a hospital, you find a very good doctor, and he's not from your tribe. So what are you going to do? Walk out and choose to die, on the bench? Why? Because the person who's there is not my tribesmate. So let's forget this nonsense. Let's get to a position where we say the best ideas on the table, and let's all be a part in implementing. You see, when again President Hakainde Hichilema created this public-private forum, I saw it as novel. Okay. She's created a plug point of engagement for idealistic thinking and everything else. But he himself must realize that things don't just work because you have a system. Things also work by supervision. What is the supervision mechanism that you have? The party must be involved. The party it's the best, organ to tell you this is wrong, this one is, because it's present everywhere. The party must inform you and help you to deliver. The party, your own party, it's the best intelligence system.
But why, for instance, we have a section of society that believes that the UPND as government and the UPND as a party, they are parallel?
Yeah, because first of all, we have overdone something. You can jump the line into Chauvinism, if you like.
Okay.
That's basically what you get to have. A lot of people used to no. I mean, I used to see social commentators, civil activists, and no, you can't say that you are the party and trying to draw the line between the party and the government. It's good, but when you overdo it.
So has the UPND overdone it?
I think that you have a semblance of that playing out.
Okay.
You have a semblance of that playing out. It's very important for the party to know it is in charge. It was elected by the Zambian people to change these things, and therefore must be interested not only from the front point of government, but also from the back point of supplying government and seeing what government is doing. That's a configuration that is smart to get you going. But once you choose to disconnect the party from the ruling structure, you only create the ruling elites who are not answerable to anybody.
Okay.
Do you know that it's not easy for the president to know what every minister is doing? Just his cabinet.
Okay.
He's only human. So he will be surprised by so many things. But do you know that the party always knows all of them? So they are able to raise things. Some of them are lies, some of them will be truthful. But your job is to check and see these things, how they play out. So then you can apply a remedy. So for me, the missing link is to get UPND into acceptance that it is a ruling party. It's in charge at a local position, which is why the other day I was arguing UPND must even be consultative as a party, engage trade unions. Not because there's an election, before. Work with these organs, work with the church mother bodies and all these churches, speak with them. How are we doing? What do you want to see? And engage them. So the sense of ownership is theirs. Running a country, in this context requires that you continually reach out to people. Because even when what you are prescribing is good, the participation of the people always matters. So for me, UPND should not be profligate about that truth. I've kept on saying that. We will applaud the fact that the president, I think, has put a superior program in place. The party must follow, must work with everybody else to ensure that the dreams and the agenda, this change, this grand change agenda, I call it, is cascaded into various sections of society, and ownership is taken, called in, and then we start moving as one, as a country. That way, even where there's a mishap, people already know that, no, the intention was this, but this didn't work, but we will correct it in this way. I think this country, the ambition that President Hakainde Hichilema has brought to this country is really exciting. To get this country off the third world rank. And that means manufacturing, that means probity, that means good governance, that means engagement, people engagement, that means participation, that means, owning means of production and putting them to good use, that means harmony, that means, social correctness, social justice, and that means that we must understand who we are and look upon, one another as brothers and lift each other by the shoulder.
Okay. Now, as we begin to wind up, Mr. Stula, let me find out. You are talking about development and economic growth, but the International Monetary Fund has downgraded Zambia's growth for 2024 to 2.3%. How do you react to that?
Again, it's like, we have, let's deflate this charge.
Okay.
I have heard before people say, I hope that I can remember and come to that and pick it, tag it in.
Okay.
But I've heard before people would say, President Hakainde Hichilema said when he gets into office, the dollar will appreciate. Yes, that was true.
Okay.
He got into office, the markets responded, and the dollar appreciated.
No.
But does that mean that the dollar will keep appreciating just because President Hakainde is in office? No, there are certain things that we have to keep, doing, or that we must introduce, or other factors also, including the international factors themselves. The current situation of the war in Gaza and the war in Ukraine have a huge bearing on us, a huge bearing on these things. Now, all these put together, you can't now hold that to one man and say, no, you said the dollar will appreciate, and therefore the dollar must continually appreciate. There are other factors beyond the control of others. But I think the intention is clear. The message is being sent. You now have a credible place, leadership in place. So that, works. Now we have to go to the economic growth, and so what are the parameters that are applied to what is the yardstick applied in measuring economic growth and everything else? There are many factors. Productivity is one of them, and I think that here is where we should anticipate greater things coming. Maybe that should be able to alter those figures. Okay. You now have the mines kicking into place. Shaft 28 is now drilling. So it's those things that have to work, and growing your mineral fortunes to a certain level, making use of them, and then coming to agriculture. If agriculture, for instance, if we didn't experience the drought, even I, as a peasant farmer, went and grew a hectare or so of maize. If I'd yielded that, if all of us had put that in the economy, you can imagine what that means. Because a lot of people think that it's only when you talk about copper, in terms of foreign exchange and everything else. We had a huge market that had opened up, in Congo and many others, including Zimbabwe for a long time. We've been supplying Zimbabwe too. So if we can only grow produce. So that's the economics. Produce, be peaceable, and engage one another and create more markets, and basically that's the growth. That's how you begin finding growth.
Okay.
But apart from that, the backdrop is prudent management of resources. We saw the shrinking of cabinet numbers to a manageable size so that you can save monies on other things. What has that done? It has contributed to over 70,000 people being employed, a record high which has never been beaten by anybody, in this country. So that is good. Then getting again to pay your retirees, that is good. Making sure that the army guys, when they go and get their dollars, they bring them here and they spend them themselves. That also works good for us. So there are all these things that are working, which we know if we keep supporting, I think that we will have a greater future.
Okay. Mr. Stula, we have to go. You know what they say, when you're having a productive discussion, time is always an enemy. But let me thank you more sincerely for coming through.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Okay. So, viewers, there you have it. That's Mr. Squindi Stula joining us this particular afternoon. You know how Zambian Lozi names are. They are always similar. But thank you so much, you, the major stakeholders, the viewers out there. We do appreciate your association with Camnet TV on behalf of my director, Mr. Isaac Chifita, and of course, the entire production team. I have been your host, Joe Smarter is my name. Join us next time, same place. Bye-bye, and God bless.